This is not the typical kind of video that I would make, but I think with everything going on right now, we need to talk about it. People are very angry at Nintendo. People are very angry at the price of the Switch 2. People are very angry about especially the price of the games, having some like Mario Kart World at 80 and then even 90 for a physical copy. And yeah, those prices are very, very bad, especially Mario Kart World. $70 would make sense considering, again, that's what PlayStation's doing, that's what Xbox is doing, but $80 for Mario Kart World, and then especially the $10 surcharge for all physical copies. I mean, yep, I completely understand where people are coming from. I myself have never been a big Nintendo defender, especially in this last generation where they've been especially anti-consumer. From everything with NSO not really being worth it up until probably about a year ago in my opinion, and some would argue not even now, to Mario 3D All-Stars having a fake scarcity just to drive people to get the game, just to take it off, Mario 35, Tears of the Kingdom being $70, all these things. It's very easy to see why people react this way. And we don't even have to mention the way they act toward fan projects and game preservation. In every situation I just mentioned and many more, it makes more than enough sense to point all fingers at Nintendo to demand something different. But for once, and I literally mean for once, I think people are just missing the point. You can't discuss what's going on right now with Nintendo without discussing what's happening globally with our economy. And this was made especially apparent today on April 4th when Nintendo announced they are delaying pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 in America to look at the impact of Trump's tariffs. Before Nintendo made this announcement, and even after, there seems to be a giant vacuum right now in the content creator space of people not discussing what the tariffs mean realistically, not just for Nintendo, but for everybody, and what that means for the Nintendo Switch 2 prices. I understand that most probably just don't want to enter the political space, but you cannot talk about what's going on right now without talking about the political situation. Whether we like it or not, these things affect our hobby. They really do. And honestly, ignoring that fact and trying to put all of the pressure on Nintendo really does miss the mark, and it misses the moment. I've just seen too many try to dance around this fact, but you cannot deny it. Based on everything that we know, what's happening with our economy, I'm based in the United States, what's happening in the United States right now, I think that there's a very high likelihood that the initial Switch 2 prices already priced in the potential impact of tariffs. Since before getting elected, Trump has been very clear that tariffs on the entire world as retaliatory measures to make up for a supposed trade deficit with other countries is a core part of his economic plan. The problem is, though, is that there's been so much uncertainty about what specific tariffs will be levied, how they will be levied, the percentage that will be levied, and how exactly we're going to calculate what qualifies as a reciprocal tariff. If you pay attention to the way the market was moving before April 2nd, you could see this very obviously. Trump would be very inconsistent about what tariffs we were going to do. Apparently up to 90 minutes before the April 2nd Liberation Day tariff announcement, Trump and his team were still not sure what the specific percentages were and what they were going to do, leaving the market on its own. Of course, we got literally the worst outcome, which is that Trump will be, we the United States, will be tariffing every single one of our trading partners, each with their own individual rate on top of a 10% reciprocal tariff. To explain for those unaware, a tariff is a tax on import. For example, if Nintendo wants to ship hardware here to the United States to be bought by the US consumer base, they have to pay an additional tax to bring it here. In this case, it would be Nintendo of America because the importer pays the tax, and then they typically pass that price on to the consumer because they still have to make a profit. And that isn't even a matter of corporate greed. While there are some who could use tariffs as an excuse to go even higher, you have to do it simply to make a profit. As I said, even though Trump announced these tariffs on the same day as the Nintendo Switch 2 event, I think it's clear that Nintendo attempted to price in the potential impact of tariffs based on what they knew before that event happened. There is no other reasonable explanation why physical games would have a $10 surcharge for the physical copy outside of the literal physical distribution that's going to be hit by a potential tariff. In addition, we already see the Nintendo Switch 2 price is a bit inflated considering that Japan is getting a region-locked version that's only $330 US. Purchasing power parity between Japan and the United States is not enough to account for this massive shift or difference in prices. So it seems to me that they saw the uncertainty of the US market, and again, how this affects the global economy. Just look at the markets around the world since April 2nd. They probably, I believe, priced in a lot of the, I'll be honest, admittedly, very ridiculous, very hard to swallow price increases on their software. But then on April 4th, made the decision to delay the pre-orders for the Switch 2 to assess tariffs. Again, they specifically said it to assess tariffs because I don't think anybody expected, especially Nintendo, how hard they will be getting hit. This isn't the matter of just a little more taxation. Japan is getting hit with a 24% across-the-board tariff, meaning that it won't apply just to one industry. There's no exceptions for games or hardware, technology, or anything. They're getting hit with a 24% tariff flat. Even worse is that Vietnam, which is the country that Nintendo manufactures most of its hardware in, is getting hit with a whopping 46% tariff from the United States. These tariffs isolated would be devastating, but the fact that it's affecting the entire global economy is making everything much, much worse. We saw during the pandemic, as it will be now, supply chain issues in one part of the world affects everywhere else. For example, Taiwan is also getting hit with a 21% tariff, and they are the semiconductor capital of the world. Forget the Nintendo Switch 2, all electronics are going to become more expensive because of this. I only wanted to talk about this because I don't like to see the amount of people who are directing their hatred entirely at Nintendo. Mostly because that outrage is just horrendously misplaced. It's not meeting the moment. Directing the anger at Nintendo, you are ignoring the reality, the political, social, economic reality of what we're living in right now. I know that for many people, gaming is an escape. It's a very good form of escapism, but video games also do exist in reality, and they are very much at the whims of market forces. We can ignore politics, but politics sure as hell will not ignore us. Ever since these tariffs were instituted, the likelihood of a recession seems to be increasing by the day. And many might look at the stock market falling and laugh because, I don't have stock. I know most of you watching this probably don't have any stock. But if you look at the areas of the economy that are experiencing the most pain, it's everyday, normal consumer goods. It's not luxury. We are honestly living in a very extraordinarily not good moment in time. And I just think that focusing the outrage over the Switch 2 prices on Nintendo alone, it's not living in reality. And I don't blame most people for not knowing about this. What I do think, though, is that content creators need to be more honest with their audiences, because this is not even inherently political. This is just the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, tariffs are being instituted, we are heading toward potentially a global trade war, and this it affects gaming. And I didn't even mention how a trade war makes this worse. These tariffs will not exist in isolation. China has already retaliated with a 34% tariff on the United States, the European Union is getting ready to retaliate on the United States, and I imagine that Japan will eventually as well. So, as much as we like to sit in our little bubble of gaming, which is great, we can't deny the obvious political forces that are at will when it comes to things that we enjoy like Nintendo. Because the fact of the matter also is that the Nintendo Switch 2 price of $450 and $500 in the United States might very well get pushed well beyond that, and I think that focusing the outrage on Nintendo is counterproductive. In a normal world, in a normal setting, obviously Nintendo would be 100% at fault, but denying that they are also privy to the same political forces that could, control our lives would be just nonsensical. And I imagine we're going to see many more of the same thing happening with price hikes with other gaming companies. It just, is very unfortunate the Switch 2 had to be released and launched now. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. This is not my typical style of video. Typically I make scripted content where I try to make it high quality, and I also make weekly shorts. I just thought that given everything right now, it was important just to have this context.